In India, particularly, the forests are a main source of livelihood and income for a particular class of people who are very poor.
People were in fact deprived of their rights over the resources they have been using. This process went on, and there was heavy exploitation of timber by the traders, by the government, and all that.
It was becoming apparent that there is something wrong. Forests were getting degraded, and there was a growing tussle between the local communities and the forestry department.
The real shift in India's forest management took place in 1988 with the enactment of new forest policy. The India's forest will be managed with the people and for the people.
Ford Foundation initially had supported joint forest management in 2 states. When it became a national program, a national level network was set up, and Ford Foundation provided a grant to the Society for Promotion of Wastelands Development, or SPWD in brief. The network kind of initially played a more activist kind of role. Over the years, joint forest management has been accepted by forestry departments of various states.
Today, out of 1 billion population of the country, 350 million people are dependent on forest for their livelihood needs. Out of the 28 states of the Union, the Joint Forest Management Program at present is being implemented in 26 states, 36,165 people's committees.
When I joined the New Delhi office in 1997, I walked into a portfolio that had around 2 decades of history. The portfolio incorporated perhaps the best and the brightest in terms of institutions and individuals working in forest management at that period. They had evolved ways of doing things, both good and bad. They were perceived to be a group of very committed, very active NGOs, but that is all an NGO-led and NGO-defined agenda, which may or may not be representative of larger concerns, both at the grassroots level and perhaps the more practical needs of people who have to implement and enforce policy. And there was a kind of animosity at some level between the groups that we were supporting and policymakers who had to make decisions. Network members perceived that there was an inner circle that had more access to the foundation, almost like a social club. We were perceived to be at the center of this networking effort. The kinds of issues and concerns being raised from 5-6 years ago were exactly the same issues that were still being reported when I came in. So it was very apparent that we needed to do some changes. So we started a process of consultation to decentralize the network. We could not just implement changes without people, partner institutions, and individuals being part of that process.
The first meeting was certainly not, pleasant and peaceful, because people were upset that their control was going to be taken away and didn't quite understand what the new structure was going to be like and what responsibility would they have.
Well, there's several steps involved in it. One is, of course, just making groups and individuals understand the logic. And it wasn't too difficult to explain. If we're talking about empowerment, if we're talking about participation, if we're talking about democratizing and responsive governance around natural resources, then one could not argue with the logic that it is better to evolve structures that would allow all of this to happen. And that a network that is tightly controlled from Delhi simply would not allow that to happen.
In addition to meetings, I'm sure Doris must have met with, say, SPWD people on her own, perhaps as a follow-up to what had been discussed and where this was really heading and so on, because it's important to reassure everyone that it's all going to work out well. So at the end of 1997, we came up with a report which detailed the reasons as to why decentralization was necessary, what the current problems were, what the future challenges are going to be, and what the new structure is going to look like.
Grassroots organizations normally would require assistance in putting together sometimes proposals, in conceptualizing the project, in facilitating travel. And while we would like to support it, to the extent that we can, we clearly could not do that for a large number of those small organizations. And yet we do not want to miss out on assisting at that level. So what we have done in order to accommodate a large number of these small groups was to open a small grants facility at the Winrock International office.
We work with the prospective grantee a lot before a proposal is finalized. Very often there are grantees who have very bright ideas. They are not trained to prepare work schedules, budget schedules, things like that. We sit with them, we talk to them, we shape the proposal along with them. So it's this kind of a nurturing relationship with small NGOs that makes it very rewarding. The local groups feel that there's someone in Delhi who's interested in them. That itself is a big motivation for them to do a little bit more. It's not that you have to keep a track of every penny and how they are accounting for it. Financial trouble has been the least of our worries.
Other way is to promote information sharing between different people in the field. I mean, being such a big country, there are a lot of good things happening in different nooks and corners. So we just want to highlight and share with others what's happening. One is, of course, through an electronic newsletter. We also are planning to come up simultaneously with a hard copy version of that newsletter.
People are looking for ways, where are the success stories, so that could be replicated. If we do a good project in Kerala, and we just make that person in Kerala share his information to a large number of researchers, then you are already doing a service, which will help them to solve their problem.